Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. It is finally time to grow our fall garden, specifically garlic. Here we go. So in today's video, I will be showing you how I'm going to be planting my garlic this year. This is actually my first time growing garlic. It's just something that I wanted to give a try. I have a raised bed that's done. We actually got our first really hard frost and freeze a couple nights ago, so everything's just kind of dying out. It is going to warm up here in the next couple days, so I thought that was the most opportune time to get our garlic in the ground. With that being said, I am going to have two different kinds of garlic. I am predominantly growing hardneck garlic because I am up in zone 5. So I want it to kind of overwinter or get established before our big snowfalls come and all that type of stuff, and then be able to harvest it late spring, early summer next year before I get my summer garden up and going as well in my raised bed outside. So with that, I am growing a hardneck music. Okay, that is tolerable, I believe, all the way down to zone 3, if not 4, with that one. And then another hardneck one, which is Inchalium Red, which I am growing, if you guys can see that one. And then music there. So you might be asking yourself, well, what's the difference between hardneck and softneck? Softneck you can kind of grow into the spring and harvest it in the early summer, or you can plant it in the fall if you live in a warmer climate. So down south, we are in a cold climate, so we get freezing, frozen temperatures 4 to 5 months out of the year, and that's where hardneck garlic comes into play. It is a more cold tolerant and frost tolerant and freeze tolerant type of garlic. So that's what we grow up here in zone 5. So we want to plant these in the fall to get them established just a little bit. So when you kind of got like a week to 10 days, where it's a little bit warmer than maybe average, or you can just plant them in fall, in late September, early October, which we're at right now. We're actually in mid-October. And the reason why you want that is the cold actually will produce giant bulbs. So what happens is when the temperature gets colder, it forces everything into this clove to start establishing a root system, okay? And so it's going to slowly just plump up, and once it freezes, it kind of just like goes dormant. And then once the snow starts to thaw and everything else, and it starts to warm up, it has all that energy in that clove, and it just slowly just starts to build like crazy. And then once we get to, late spring, early summer, that's where you'll have these giant bulbs or giant cloves, or giant bulbs with giant cloves for harvesting and then to use in the kitchen. So these bulbs, garlic bulbs, or cloves are actually from Young Seed Company. So JUNG, which is our local one here in Wisconsin. I grow all their stuff. I actually have some tulip bulbs here that are going to be going in our front yard as well. I really haven't had any issues with any of their stuff, so I figured, what the heck, why not? Let's just go with these. I know Keene is another one here in Wisconsin that a lot of people get their garlic from as well. All right, with that being said, you're probably asking, what do we do? All right, so what we need to do is we need to get these out. So we're gonna cut the tops off. There are instructions here on the bag, just like any seed packet. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna reach in here, and then we're actually going to split this whole bulb into the little cloves. So each one of these is a separate clove, and we're going to put those in the ground. You can space them about 4 to 6 inches apart, and then we have to do certain things to get them ready for the winter as well. So we're gonna start pulling these apart, and we're gonna see how many we have and go from there. All right, so we're gonna get these peeled apart. Just come in here, rip them apart, and they're gonna look like this. There is one little clove, and so we would just stick this in the ground just like that. I'll show you as I go and plant them outside how we're gonna do it and how we do it with the spacing. So we're gonna get going on these. We're gonna see how many cloves we actually have. All right, so this is what we're left with after we split them all apart. And so what you see is kind of have a bunch of different sizes and shapes here. What I'm going to do, since I'm a little bit limited on space, is I'm only going to be planting kind of these medium to larger size cloves, just so I can take advantage of the size that they already have. If I had a bigger space, I would plant all this, but I'm gonna go through and separate. So we got some of these like super tiny little guys here. There's another one kind of in here, some smaller ones. Those I'll just set off to the side, but I'm really gonna be looking for ones that are about this big. So about the size of your thumb or a little bit bigger. All right, so let's talk about planting and then the specifics that go along with it. Since this is like a root crop, we need loose soil, okay? So it can't be compacted. So if you kind of have it compacted throughout your growing season from the summer, I highly recommend you just go in there, till it up, add some new loose soil as well in there. You don't really need to do a whole lot of fertilizer unless you think a lot of it is depleted from your growing season this past summer. Spacing is usually 4 to 6 inches apart. And then since we are growing this through the winter, especially up here in the cold climates, we need to bury them at least 2 to 3 inches deep and then add at least 3 to 5 inches of a mulch on top to help protect it and just get it through the winter before it can start growing like crazy in the spring. And so this would actually be, if you're using it in a raised bed, this would be a good time to just go through your supplies that you had left over from last spring. If you have potting mix, potting soil, you can add that into your raised garden bed just to get rid of it, because you don't really need to store that over the winter. That's what I did to kind of amend the soil as well. I add my ultimate favorite organic Neptune's Harvest crab and lobster shell into the dirt and just rub it in there, get it buried in there. That just helps jumpstart everything that it needs to. I use this exclusively with all of our plants, especially when they go in the ground, and it just actually has them go crazy and bonkers with a good natural organic fertilizer. There is a link below. Once your soil is all amended and dug up and nice and loose, what I go through is I actually chart out or lay out the bigger cloves that I have with proper spacing. I just use my thumb and my pinky, and then I will go back through and use the smaller cloves that I have to fill in some of those gaps between those rows or in that grid. So I take those smaller ones, as you can see what I'm doing here, placing them through and then getting them all laid out. Now it's time to stick them in the ground. You're going to take the flat bottom part, shove it in the ground, make sure the pointy part is pointed towards the top. So once your soil is nice and loose like this, you can just work them in 2 to 3 inches and work your way all the way down the line to get all of them into the ground. Here I'm just finishing up with our music garlic, so the bigger cloves. Had to kind of get creative with some of the spacing that we have in here. There's bigger cloves, so there's less of them that come in the package, but with them being bigger, I need to make sure I have enough space for them to grow. Now that everything's in the ground, all we have to do is add this. 3 to 5 inches of this on top of all of that. Before you put your mulch or your straw on top, make sure you give everything a good watering. It is a little bit drier now here in the fall, so we want to give them the best head start as possible. So as you can see, planting is super easy. It is literally one of those plants where you just get it in the ground, set it, and forget it for about 4 to 6 months. Okay, so once it gets in the ground, it'll establish, and then it's gonna grow like crazy in the spring and into this. Hope you all enjoyed this video. Just because it's freezing and frosty outside doesn't mean your garden has to be done for the year. You can always plant something for the fall that can grow over the winter and then into next spring and have that head start. If you like this video, make sure to smash that thumbs up button. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to this channel. I have a couple new ideas for a couple series that I want to do over the winter months here, just to kind of get us to that next growing season. And as always, I'll see you guys next time.